Thank you, Prof. Honorable Director and Deputy Director, and also the Director of SSRC, my colleagues and distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. So today's seminar, the topic is quantifying the managerial ability of the microfinance institutions, and it's an application of the DEA, data envelopment analysis. So basically the title shows what I will be discussing today. So the main thing is we need to quantify the managerial ability of the microfinance institutions using the data envelopment analysis. What I will discuss today's session, basically the introduction and why you should care about the study and what previous studies did and didn't, and what are the benefits of the study, and then the methods and how I measure the managerial ability, and there will be some validity test and of course the concluding remarks. So basically this study is somehow the methodological issues discussing. See the microfinance we can see is very Okay, so microfinance nowadays has become a very eminent sector. So there are a lot of things that the microfinance is offering for the small credit to target group, especially the poor people and the SMEs. So what's the difference between the microfinance and the other conventional financial institutions? Is basically they provide the loans without collateral, whereas the bank and other financial institutions, you have to give them the collateral to get the loans and all the things. So basically, there are some characteristics that make the speed up the growth of the microfinance sector throughout the world. Is basically the microloans and savings for the SME development, and the quick loan processing system, and there are some the market level interest rate and collateral free, targeting marginalized women. So they are trying to empower the women. So these are the dynamic features that makes the speed up the growth of microfinance sector all over the world. And you see that because of this growth, there are some huge competition in this sector. So this is one of the key issues, the competition in microfinance. And so microfinance is now focusing on the sustainability and the profitability. Why they are focusing, I will discuss the next slide. So why you should care about this study? Basically, when the microfinance initial stage, they had only one mission: to serve the poor. Because they had enough fund, they were getting fund from the foreign, so they can easily serve the poor. But nowadays, the foreign funds are very scarce, and that's why they need to manage their own capital to run the institutions. So it's become very more challenging task for them. On hand, they need to, they have to perform the social responsibility. On another hand, they have to sustain on the market. So the one mission has become the double mission. It's a dual mission. So one is the social responsibility, which is basically the serve the poor. Another one is the sustainability of the microfinance institution. So to ensure the financial sustainability, they need to do some parts like that, to utilize the resources and attributes like they have assets, employees, deposit, cost of loan, and the operating expenses and revenues as well. So they need to use these attributes in an efficient way so that they can survive and they can maintain their the financial sustainability. And mostly this task it depends on the managerial decision, and the good management is needed to maintain this all kind of things. So an efficient and productive management can ensure balancing between the microfinance institution sustainability and the productivity. As managers have the responsibility to remain sustainable and profitable, utilizing their abilities, expertise, experiences and resources. Thus, it's an important issue to enhance the managerial ability to ensure the sustainability of and the profitability of the microfinance institutions. So what the previous studies did and didn't. So basically previous scholars, they try to study on the field studies and the borrower perspective, and they try to figure out whether the microfinance is helping the poor, or maybe what's the lag behind these things. So now the trend has changed. They are now focusing on the institutional perspective. What the institution, how they can sustain, how they can manage their resources, how they can utilize their resources in an efficient way. You can see the few studies recently, they have conducted few research on the efficiency, productivity, and somehow the performance of the microfinance institutions. But unfortunately, managerial ability was not focused in their studies. There are a few reasons maybe. One of the reasons is there is no perfect way to measure the managerial ability. It's not easy task to how you manage the managerial ability of the managers. Maybe some people, they are good that you can use some questionnaire and do some the survey on the data from the managers and others. But still we can manage, we can measure the managerial ability without doing any survey. We can use the secondary data to measure the managerial ability, which has been introduced by Demergen. They basically use it for the public and private sector industries, and from that perspective, I and with some of my supervisors, we also implement this on banking sector. Now I am trying to focus on this issue in the microfinance institutions. Most of the existing measures are at the best indirect proxies for the managerial ability. So it's not directly attributed to the managerial ability solely. But I already discussed about these things. The few researchers, they are trying to attempt to measure the managerial ability to overcome the difficulties of this issue. So the aim of this study is to quantify the managerial ability of the microfinance institutions. So what are the benefits of this study? Why should you care about what the people will understand these things? So basically the extension of managerial ability. So since I am extending these things from the public sector and the private sector, industrial sector and the banking sector, then the microfinance institution. So it's basically easily accessible and obtainable data, and it's more attributable to the managerial specific characteristics. Other proxies is more the solely attributed to the managerial ability. It also opened the door for the policymakers, regulators and academics to decompose the ability of the microfinance institutions manager and conduct various studies related to managerial ability that was difficult previously. It is also extend a growing literature in microfinance that examines the influence of the managerial ability on the organizational, investment, financial and accounting practice of the firm. So since I already mentioned that I use the DEA, so DEA is basically the data envelopment analysis. We collected some data, so we will discuss about the DEA in next slide. So we collected from data, it's annual data from 419 microfinance institutions operating in 24 countries, Latin America and the Caribbean countries. So over the period of 2003 to 2014, is because the microfinance information exchange, which is called mixed market database, is available from 2003 to 2014, and we have chosen the samples is those who are practicing dual mission, as you mentioned, that's sustainability and the poverty alleviation. Because the increasing level of competition, commercialization, and profit-making intention is a challenge to the the sustainability of the microfinance institution. So finally, we have choose like total sample size was 2,869 is observation year for the analysis. So what is DEA? DEA is basically a mathematical technique. This is a non-linear programming approach. Is to measure the relative efficiency of the assembled frontier. So by converting input into output. So in DEA it's non-parametric test, but the later the mathematician they use it and convert it in a parametric way. So we can use this one as a continuous variable. So there will be no issues to use this, like the mixing up parametric and non-parametric issues. So the main thing is for the DEA, you have to choose the input and output variables. It's very important and it's very difficult task, because if you put something input, definitely there will be output. So you will get the score. But the thing is how you justify these things. So it's very difficult. So you have to be very careful while choosing the input and output variables. And there are a few methods the literature they use. Some of the intermediation approach and the production approach. Intermediation approach is basically where they use the deposit as input, and production approach is they use the deposit as output. So this is the difference. So since our main target is to measure the managerial ability, so we have to use like the things which deal with the management, like the operational approach, incoming things, and all those things. So we choose the mix of intermediation and production approach. So basically it's called the operational approach, or you can say it income-based approach. So the choice of input output is related to management operations, which generate revenues for a business to operate efficiently. So using the DA, we got the efficiency score first. So we use the variable return scale. There are some, the constant return scale and the variable return scales. And output oriented is basically the maximization. So the envelopment model, that's the the mathematician they transfer from non-parametric to parametric model to calculate the relative efficiency. So we choose this, the output is the revenue, total revenue. How they can use the manager, use these things, some cost and all those things to utilize this efficiently to get the maximum revenues. We also, switching these things like aggregating, segregated the input and output variables to get the efficiency score, whether it's correct or not. So, however, the efficiency score remain unchanged across the various DA specifications. Okay, why choose the Latin America and Caribbean? Actually, microfinance models of Latin America and Caribbean is quite different than the Asian and African one. We choose these countries because of the similar level of economic development and growing microfinance market. We observe intense competition here. And furthermore, it is also evident that microfinance institutions are not yet efficient to their areas to reach out the millions of poor in this part of the world. So it's significant to identify why MFIs are lagging to reach out to the maximum number of poor clientele. Okay, so this is the main method. I'm putting here the methodological framework. First, what we did, we used the DA and choose the input output to get the efficiency score. And once we get the efficiency score, remember we choose some input and output variable to get the efficiency score, which is basically two things involved there. One is the management issues, another one is the institutional issues. So what we need to get the managerial ability, we need to take out the institutional effect from this score. So what we did the bootstrapping probit regression. Then we found some, we will discuss this one. Then from the bootstrapping probit regression, the unexplained portion, which is residual, is the managerial ability, is the measure of our managerial ability. So basically what we did, the output variable we took the financial revenue, which is the overall revenue, and the input variables we choose deposit, operating expense, and number of employees. So they will utilize these three inputs to get the maximum revenues. So once we get the efficiencies, so you can see here from 2003 to 2007, it was upward efficiency score. So by the way, the efficiency score is basically 0 to 1. So it's 1 means the fully efficient, 0 is the full inefficient. So we can found here in LSE countries, so 2003 to 2007 quite upward trend. The efficiency was good, but if you see from 2008 to 2011, it was declining. So you can explain here that it's due to because of the the global financial crisis. It was declining, but that they tried to recover from 2012 to 2014 is quite upward trend. And if we see the efficiency score of the country-wise, you can see the highest was Jamaica, and followed by the Mexico, Brazil, and Costa Rica. And the lowest score was like Uruguay, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, and Guyana. So once we get the efficiency score, we use the probit regression analysis using some characteristics of the institutional characteristics, firm size. So obviously that if someone have more total asset, they will get more efficiency. And if we have the old microfinance institution, there is a possibility that they will have the more efficient way to collect. And if there is a regulator, there is two different views here, whether the regulation is good or bad. Some people argue that regulation is good, whereas some other, they say that regulation is not good for the microfinance institutions. So, but we found that if it's is regulated, that means it's less efficient. And there are some other factors like financial intermediation, legal status, and social outreach. So these are the things we need to take out from the efficiency score to get the managerial ability. From this regression, we got the residual. So that residual is basically the managerial ability. So this is the measure of the managerial ability. There's another way that since we got that the residual, so there should be the mean should be 0. But in our case, it's like negative 0.002 is almost 0, but it's not full exactly 0 because we use the probit regression and we subtracted the predicted value from the actual value, so it's not full exactly 0. So you see this is the year wise. And if it's positive, that means the value is positive, that means the managerial ability is above average. If it's negative, it's the below average. And you see the country-wise, the highest managerial ability, you can see the Brazil, and followed by the Costa Rica, Mexico, and Peru. And the lowest, you can see the Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Uruguay, and Suriname. Okay, since we use the residual, so there is a possibility that there are a lot of things that can explain these things. So we might omit few of the variables. So we need to, testify these things whether my measure is correct or not. So there are few steps, like 3 steps we use here to robust the result. So first we provide some pairwise correlation among other, the measures, alternative measures, and also we have used the manager fixed effect to investigate whether the estimated managerial ability is statistically significant and is more attributed to the managers. And finally, we try to find out the relationship between managerial ability and the firm performance. Okay, the first one, we can see here the few of the other measures like the microfinance efficiency, historical return on asset, and managerial efficiency. So return on asset is basically we use some the residuals from the return on asset using the 3 years of return lagged, and the historical return is ROA, and the managerial efficiency is basically revenue to cost ratio. So this one revenue to cost ratio is I applied in the total quality management. So this is for the banking. So I deploy these things from that one. So we can see here the pairwise correlation, univariate correlation is positively related and all are significant. This also validate our measure. Another one is this is very important, manager fixed effect. We did some that regression analysis here, and we found our measure of managerial ability when we excluded the institution effect. We found 62.5% significant as compared to others, like they are 46 and 44%. Even when we include these things, it's still significant is 56.2%, and there is a spread between the manager and this which is higher than other measures. And finally, since we found that our managerial ability measures, so this one of the variables we can use this one. So we try to find out whether the managers of the microfinance institution with higher managerial ability outperform managers of the microfinance institution with lower managerial ability. So what we did, we have done some the diagnostic test whether we should choose fixed effect or random effect for the panel data. So Houseman test we did. So we found that fixed effect we need, and we also have some heteroscedasticity test. So we have used the robust fixed effect, and to robust this fixed effect we have also some our OLS, GLS, and since these are the static method, so we have also some dynamic method like the system GMM, where we also see all the significant, and we found the positive relationship with the managerial ability with the microfinance performance. So why would consider the GMM? So basically that if we use the static things like fixed effect, random effect, OLS and GLS, there is a possibility of endogeneity issues. So in order to solve these issues, we also use the system GMM. And we also examine the institutional effect, characteristics, and also the macroeconomics characteristics here. So what we found from the study is that managerial ability is economically and statistically significant to manage specific characteristics. And we found a significant positive relationship between managerial ability and the microfinance institutional financial performance. That suggests that managers of microfinance institutions with higher managerial ability outperform managers of microfinance institutions with lower managerial ability. And the findings of this study is are robust as we deal with various econometric techniques and obtain the similar result. So managerial ability is a crucial factor for financial performance of the microfinance institutions. Thus, its policymakers, regulators should more focus on managerial ability to keep the microfinance institutions financially sound. And we found in a study that some of the LSE countries are not efficient in financial performance, so they can they take some policies from those who are performing well, like Brazil, Mexico, and Costa Rica. And overall, the findings of this study can help the policymakers, regulators, and academic to propose policy recommendation for the long-term sustainability of the microfinance industry by estimating and decomposing the ability of the managers of any financial institutions, including microfinance institutions. So we have some limitations. This study, since we use the residuals, so there is a possibility that a portion of these residuals reflect factors that are not attributable to the managerial ability. However, to validate our measures, we have carried out a number of validity tests. And another limitation is we only consider the sample of LSE countries. So future research can be extended to the this approach to the other financial market like South Asia, East Asia, and African countries. And furthermore, the future research may consider asking questions, for example, like whether managerial ability can affect loan portfolio quality or how managerial ability can handle economic and financial crises, and what are the factors that determine managerial ability of the microfinance institution, for example, education, gender, experience, and location, and so on. So thank you for your kind attention, and this is our presentation for today. And if you have any question, you can ask.